do you already see some of those younger guys heeding what they're seeing and learning?
Yes, and like what a value for some of the players at their positions to come in, and you found out early on, and I'd asked, Ben, have you met Zach? Yeah, he already reached out to me, and so knowing they were already ahead of them before they even got here, that's what leadership is all about.
Bill McCaffrey's college coach says he's really hard on himself when he makes mistakes in games and practice. How do you kind of coach a guy like Luke, who's kind of student of the game, son and a brother of a player, to kind of move on with things and not be such a perfectionist?
Yeah, I think that's true for all really good competitors. Oh, if I could just have that one play. It's true for coaches, honestly, as well. So really, it's about getting to the next play and knowing that, all right, whatever just happened, I have to take that information and move on to the next one. So finding those spaces when something didn't go quite right, and moving on to the next play quickly, like that's a really important skill. What we do know is that like there's going to be adversity that's coming, and when you have the mindset knowing, bring it on, I know this is coming, I'm ready for that, then you're ready to transition more quickly.
You guys have games Thursday and whatever. I know you've coached on games various days of the week. NFL's going to Friday and Tuesday. What do you make of that? How hard of that is? How a challenge is that for teams and coaches when you have games on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, all that?
I think we were talking about routine earlier, and knowing that you'd like to set everything up, where I have a game, this is what I do on Wednesday, on Thursday, on Friday, on Saturday. And so when those games come, you'd really just shift. This would be like a Wednesday. This would be like a Friday. This is what we do before the game. So it's not as difficult as it seems. You have some travel that you have to work in, shorter weeks, longer weeks. But again, staying true to a process. This is how we get ready. That's to me the biggest piece of it.
On sort of that leadership front with a guy like Wagner, who you've obviously known, what specifically does he do? Is it more of a lead by example? Is he a talking guy? What is it he kind of does that helps?
I'd say probably a little bit of both. And what you'll find from him is like, this is a rare competitor. I remember, going on 10 years now or longer, me filming an install. So, as coaches, sometimes you film to see, how did I teach and how did it go? And I can remember that day specifically, it might've been the first day of an OTA. I had filmed it and went back home that night to watch it. I was so pissed at myself because I didn't ask specific people the questions. In other words, Ben, what is this? And John, what is this? And so I'd ask questions, and like Bobby Wagner and Earl Thomas answered like every question, as it come up. They just had that type of intensity about them. So I would say he is both. Pull somebody to the side to discuss it, think about it in this way, but he does it in his own way as a leader. And that's what I want he and Zach and others that are here to make sure they're here as ball players first. But when you look back on it, some of the people that mentored him, now that's a way to pay it forward. And so that's one of the coolest parts of our game is when now you get to pass that along to the next one. And the very best players do that. And I look back and was fortunate to, coach guys like a Bryant Young or a Jason Taylor and, others that has made the Hall of Fame. But there was this common trait of sharing that knowledge to the next. And I thought that was always one of the cool parts of like the great players that were willing to pass it on to the next guy.
And with Emmanuel Forbes, just curious about his progress, but also you guys had him doing some punt returns last week. Just kind of curious, do you see that as possibly part of his future?
Well, I think right off the bat, we know there's more return opportunities. And so Emmanuel's got, ridiculous return skills as a defensive player of returning. So we wanted to add that part of it. Although he didn't do it at Mississippi State, that doesn't mean he doesn't have the traits necessary. So we got a big, deep crew now that we're working people both in punt return and in kick return. And so just like everything, we're trying to, find out what unique things a player has and how to feature them. That not only will be during this time of year. Can he be a punt returner? Can a safety come down to play dime? Can a tight end split out wide? Those are things that it takes time through training camp. One player may be able to, another player may not. And so it does take a little bit of exploring, but that's like our job as coaches to find any unique traits that the players have and then how would we feature those unique traits and trying to find the things that people can do versus the things that they can't do.
How is Jaden progressing?
As we're getting started, like it's a big passing camp. So for the quarterbacks, they're getting some really good looks. There's a number of coverages now that have gone in, from the first day of where it was maybe just 3 deep and man-to-man. So to see that type of progress from he and from the other quarterbacks, I think that's good. In weeks ahead, we'll add team things to it and blitzes and, a pocket and that kind of stuff. But I think what jumps not only off the tape here, what you guys don't see in the meeting room is just the competitive nature and the learning and the command that he has already. And so that's something that speaks to his work ethic.
When you're a head coach and there's a lot of things on your plate, how much time, energy do you spend monitoring Jaden, checking in with his coaches, making sure that he's on that development curve that you guys would like?
Yeah, and it's for everybody, really, not just Jaden, but to make sure, and I get, the reason behind it, but each of the guys, what can they do? How are they making progress? So we debrief pretty much every day on a practice day, not so much on the non-practice days, and then featuring what other types of things do we need to add to it. So you may see post-practice, they're working one thing today and something different tomorrow. So you're always kind of tweaking and building that. And that's just how we do it at all the spots.
Sorry to hammer the leadership thing, but
it's one of my favorite topics, so bring it.
You guys as coaches can lead the way that you do and set the tone and culture and all those different things. How important is it to have locker room leaders, and what can that do for a team having kind of those veterans who can stand up in a locker room and say what needs to be said?
Yeah, the very best teams I've been a part of were really strong in the locker room first, and those standards that they create together, to me, that's where like the gold is. And so having ways to hold each other accountable, to push one another, to challenge one another, and that's what really being a great teammate is all about. Sometimes you're the mentor, sometimes you're the mentee, and it doesn't have to be young to old always either. It's like we were talking about earlier, a player now going to, do some punt returning. Well, Crowder's a great person to talk to about that if you've not done a lot of punt returns or kick returns. So finding these little spaces to lead one another, push one another. Sometimes it's in the weight room, to say, come on, this is a guy who brings that energy into that. Sometimes you'll see it on the field. So it's not one person that has to continuously lead in every way. That's if no one's leading in that space, that's a real cue. It's your time to stand up.
At this point in the calendar, how much are you paying attention to kind of organizing the depth chart and building chemistry amongst groups of players versus just having guys learn the offense, learn the defense, learn what they're supposed to be doing? And then how does that prioritization shift as you move through the spring and into the summer? Yeah,
so if you look, big picture wise, there's certain parts of our identity that we'll be able to hit now. The speed, the execution of finishing plays downfield, the defense, the way they break, the way they run to the ball, like that's an identity part we're putting together, and I'm seeing, signs of that moving forward. The things that we don't get to see right now are the physical parts of it. Like that's not what this time is for. So what areas and knowing what to compete at that time. So in this time, it's competing, man, can I learn these details and can I really go execute really quickly, communication. So not as much of the evaluation it is the learning to go, but I do want to see that speed and see the guys communicate and the chemistry that goes. But as far as the depth chart is, not really right now. That's not part of it. We want to get as many guys, as much reps as we can. And then as we get into camp, then we'll be able to start building that as we go, which would include the preseason games.
You've got officials out there today. I know they do the training camp visit, but what do you like about involving them?
Yeah, and we're going to try to do it for every practice. And officials at practice also mean that we now have the ability to really put ourselves in situations. So you'll see some 2-minute today, but as important as that, this was an ICT. This is why they threw it. This is why they called, offensive pass interference, whatever that may have been, of training the guys on what good looks like. That's a really important part of it. And so we don't want to create bad habits. So having the officials here is a nice check system.
Dan, training camp's right around the corner. Curious about your philosophy with joint practices, and if you have any joint practices that you know that you can announce or to that nature.
Yeah, so right now we have one joint practice scheduled with Miami, and so that will be there, and we'll work with them for a day, and then have our game. And we'll discuss that, with some other teams as we're going in to see if everything logistics-wise can line up. But there's value in it to say, just seeing other looks and people and formations and speed. And so there's real value to doing it. And so if we can, we will.
We see them out here. The viewers will see them out here. What's the expectation from the players as far as the schedule goes throughout the week? What are they going through?
So in the early part of the day, meetings and workouts. And so in the strength and conditioning side, different things on different days. And then we go a portion inside where we work a lot of team and go through blitzes and run game to that. And then outside, we really work like there's a long piece on our skill development. And so as you're going through it, Chick, that's what this time of year is about, skills. And if you keep working those skills hard, then you'll be able to trust those skills when you put it into the certain plays and the certain things. So for instance, a defensive player may have a certain coverage or a certain way that he has to play. You work that skill for this specific coverage, and then we play it today. offensively, there's a certain route that may go in. This is the extreme detail for that route, the movement, and that's how you keep working the skills, and then you put it into the whole play. So think of crawl, walk, run. And so the crawl part is the classroom. Honestly, this is how you install a play. We like to jog through them at 50%, and then when we get out to here, we really am looking to see, is there a hesitation, or are they attacking it with the full speed mentality? So if you follow that process over and over and over again, it takes reps. Obviously, if you put in one coverage or one play one time and run it one time, like, by no means is that a play that you have. So it'll take reps over and over again, so they can do them instinctively without having to overthink on it. And that's what I'm looking for.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
All right. You guys have a great day.
Commanders head coach Dan Quinn talking there, addressing a lot of different topics. The one thing I would stress is when he talked about right now is not about the depth chart. It's just about getting maximum reps. When you see that, I don't know, like say there's videos that get posted of Jaden Daniels throwing to, a third string wide out or something. Don't assume that means that guy's making a play or Jade. Like, they're just running things fast. And like I had a question that somebody was asking me if Forbes was running with the twos at OTAs, and I think it's entirely premature to base anything on what they're doing in May when they're running simultaneous 7-on-7 drills. So like when we get to mini camp in 2 weeks or so, you might be able to get a much clearer indication of what kind of starting lineup would look like. But I think at this situation, May OTAs, it's just not – I mean, the coach just laid it out for you. This is not about depth chart work. It's about maximizing opportunities. I thought that was pretty interesting. I think DQ is doing a really good job of downplaying. Like whenever there's a question specifically about Daniels, he kind of refers to the whole quarterback group. I think that is smart and effective. And I think this group is working hard to prevent what I've been calling the quarterback savior complex. Like we don't need that to take root here. And if Jaden's great, that's awesome. He's great. But like they're going to try to build this as a team and allow Jaden to come along slowly. And I think that's by far a better recipe for success. I was curious if anything stood out to you guys, maybe the Emmanuel Forbes punt return stuff. I think in a vacuum, I find it really hard to believe Emmanuel Forbes is going to return punts. He's just really skinny, and the opportunity for a major collision is, frankly, would have me a little scared. But the theory there that we're just trying to find out if there are any unique things our players can do, I like that a lot, because if a guy has, and I think we'll kind of see a guy like Sennett that they signed, whether it's a straight tight end role like Kittle had in San Fran, or if it's more of like a hybrid role like Juszczyk played in San Fran. I think we'll have to watch and explore and see what happens with Sennett, but like that's the kind of interesting things. Or people want to project McCaffrey as a straight slot guy. Like I think he can do. We'll find out. They're going to find out if he can do more than that. I will say this, and I'm curious if you fellas agree there in the aquarium. The more Dan Quinn talks and leads this team and this organization, the more I like him. I don't know that means they're going to win games or not, but he seems so direct. Like this is a little like inside baseball thing, right? But if anybody watched that stream today on the Skins put it out on all their social channels, you'll notice that DQ was at a podium, and the previous couple of weeks he has not been. It had been a little more casual the previous couple of weeks, but it had been kind of a mess, frankly. I mean, just from like a reporter standpoint, it was because the cameras are in the middle, obviously trying to get their shot, and then you have to stand off to the side, and it just like for the listener or the audience, they want to be able to hear the question, so you got to pass this microphone around, and there were just a lot of hurdles to it. But the reality of life in pro football is coaches tend not to care if something is good or bad for the media. But DQ apparently like recognized that it was just kind of a haphazard way of doing things. And he's like, no, let's get the podium in here. Let's, I think he I don't know. It's interesting. Like he has been cool before about making sure that like he goes around and speaks to everybody involved. I know that a lot of people had a lot of hesitation. I know a lot of people only wanted an offensive guy. I don't know. I think DQ should be growing on you. Landfill, anything stand out to you there from DQ?
I guess I maybe would have liked it if they had set up a couple more joint practices. I know he talked about that and said they only had the one scheduled, but that was about it.
I think those are still coming. I think you get them with the Jets. Honestly, I think a bigger. I don't know this, but I'm going to speculate. I wouldn't even speculate. I'm going to guess at something, right? It's hard to set up joint practices when the opportunity of a home and home isn't there. Like if you don't belong to a country club and you're constantly just trying to get invited to a country club, but there's no place for you to invite other people to, like it's just a little bit more difficult. There's a Chief Washington Post snake photographer, Nikki Jabala. Nikki just tweeted out a picture. There's a 3-foot black snake on the walkway leading up to Commander's Park. So I'll get to take that on. I think the current situation is that they can't do a home and home for joint practices, and therefore it's harder to get them set up.
I did like when Dan Quinn was talking about making sure that he gets all the players involved when they're kind of in the classroom, so to speak, instead of just making sure that it's like one or two guys that is picking everything up. He's like intentionally asking guys if they're understanding, just to make sure everybody's on the same page. I think that's good.
That's smart, especially because what I would do when I knew teachers weren't going to ask me if I was paying attention is I very much would not pay attention. I would kind of just be there and, especially like in high school, I'd be like just trying to, I don't know, whatever it was, I wasn't paying attention. Jeffrey, anything pop for you with DQ? Okay, so
I mean, he sounds good. I'm just not trying to fall in love with, his charisma and stuff with the media, how he's handling things. I want to before I say he's growing on me, I want to look at how minicamp is going and things first before I say he's really growing on me. But I do like him.
Okay. Were you not into him as a candidate?
I was actually I was actually cool with any candidate. Look, JP, myself, like a lot of us, a lot of this fan base, we're just waiting for someone to come in here and make us winners, coming to build a franchise that's not a laughing stock of the NFL. We're not the butt of the NFL jokes, So my thing with this regiment going forward is it's the show me era. Like I've been through the falling in love with the candidates because even, some of our candidates could have been wrong. We don't know yet, So I got to see it before I say I'm all in on Quinn.